Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Voices of Tech. I'm really stoked on the guest we have today. It's Wish Bourne out of Milwaukee. Wish, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well. Just got off a good weekend, seeing the family, so can't complain. And Wish, for those, I mean, we had a chance to speak off camera, but for those of you, or for the people who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the businesses that you're running?
Sure. The short version of who I am is I'm a wanderer full of wonder. Like I love
I
to
love that.
travel. I love to move around. I love ideas. I love seeing people light up. Born and raised in Florida, but I grew up kind of all over the place. A little bit of Mississippi, Louisiana, Wisconsin. Got family all over. Ended up here in Wisconsin, Milwaukee during the pandemic, after being
Nice.
homeless for 2 years. Kickstarted my life over again.
Yeah.
Started up Renaissance Analytics, which is the company we're going to be talking about, and just started really hammering in on the this ideology that I've been trying to promote for the past 20 years, and work on and refine, and just get it out there. But yeah, so now a lot of what I do is helping small business owners or people that are just in a bind and wanting to change their life, helping them develop the skills, whether it's learning how to use digital platforms or
Yeah.
teaching martial arts, like learning how to do like self-discipline and critical
Amazing.
thinking through physical activities like martial arts.
Yeah. Something to keep you physical, something to keep you creative, something to make you money. And when you talk about that ideology, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, it's called Impactivism, and the point is to create an impact-based economy versus a profit-based economy. Or, we can get really into the nuances, but the way that I see it today, we live in a resource-based economy, meaning time, energy, money, products. All these things are resources that we use as the exchange of how we just interact in society, right?
Yeah.
Trade is kind of the cornerstone of almost all of our relationships, like even our marriages, our relationships, a lot of times are very transactional in the way that they think, because we're like, okay, is this going to provide me with the future that I want by being with this partner? Like it's still
Yeah.
very transactional. And the impact-based thinking or the impactivism model, it's not like a radical shift. Like you hear a lot about a lot of ideologies that are trying to change the world and solve some of our biggest problems like poverty and human trafficking, which is our
Yeah.
main goal. Um, they think, oh, we got to replace everything, and I don't think that that's how it works. Like we don't want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Like there is a
Hmm.
lot of stuff that actually does work really well in current systems. Like obviously
Absolutely.
because we wouldn't have been able to survive and thrive
Yeah.
and get to the point that we are now, right?
Exactly.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of victims. There's more losers than winners in capitalism.
Hmm.
Impactivism, basically, with an impact-based economy, we're all winners because
Yeah.
everything that you do generates wealth. Impact is the currency of the whole universe, and the
Hmm.
way that we define impact is the the measure of the exchange of energy from one form or entity to another. Anytime that occurs, whether you're transforming energy into another form or you're giving that energy to somebody else, whether it's a collision in space, two planets hitting each other,
Yeah.
or two people having a conversation, sharing a good vibe,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or anything, like even, a dickhead in traffic that flips you off, you know what I mean, after
Yeah.
he cut you off, you know
Exactly.
what I mean? Like that's still going to impact you.
Absolutely.
So the point of impactivism is to create a economy and a governance model. So our economy and our governance are tied together. It's not like right now we have this, you know, depending on where you live, of course, in America we have a democratic republic,
Yeah.
and that is a foundation or a framework used to try to restrain or protect capitalism, depending on who you're talking to, right?
Hmm.
In some cases, our laws are created to bolster the capitalists, right? In some
Yeah.
cases, our laws are created to help protect the end users.
Exactly.
But the point that we have these two separate systems One is like, I don't really care about laws and government. All I care about is profit. And the other one's like, okay, how can we make sure that people can use this system and still survive and thrive without,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's too disconnected. Impactivism, it's all one thing. Your governance, your activities, the way that you work throughout society, it scales infinitely. You can use an impactivist-based model to govern your own personal choices. Brushing your
Yeah.
teeth twice a day, what kind of impact is that going to have on you? You know what I mean? Versus not brushing your teeth at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's going to have an impact. So even the lack
Exactly.
of choice is still an impact, right? Even when we don't make a decision to do things, we still are generating impact. And that's like, I mean, we can go really, really deep into the nuances of this, but the core of it really comes down to that I believe democracy cannot exist, and it definitely cannot thrive in a population that's ignorant, right? We need intelligence. We need people to be informed, and otherwise they cannot make informed decisions. They can't make the smart
Exactly.
choice. If I go to vote on a policy and I have no idea how that policy is going to impact my neighbor or myself, I shouldn't be voting on that policy. You know what I mean? I
No.
should at least, and that's kind of where actually where a democratic republic does kick in is like, okay, well, I don't have enough information about this thing. I'm going to offload my decision making process onto a committee of politicians that are going to do all that due diligence to make sure that this policy that's going through Congress or whatever is going to have a good benefit,
At least
positive
you hope
impact.
so.
Yeah, you hope so, right? It really depends on whose hands are getting greased, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and that's another
No.
big problem with our governance system. You have no way of being able to tell, okay, what is the motivation behind this vote? In an impact-based economy, you can because everything is on the blockchain. Every decision
Yeah.
you make is on the blockchain, and it's all based on your votes. I mean, there's still a lot to get worked out. Like, I don't want to sit here and say this is how the system works. Like, it's still evolving. Been
It's
working on it for
always
20
working
years.
itself out. Yeah.
Yeah. And I say, and sometimes I'll say that I invented this. It's not really true. I didn't invent this. I just discovered this way of thinking, and this whole impact model is how we exist naturally as a species. Like it's how, like I say, impact is the currency of the universe. When you
Yeah.
look at the animal kingdom and you look at humans without
Early humans.
societies,
Yeah.
civilized structures like capitalism and stuff like that,
Hmm.
the way that we just interact as a species is very much based on an impact-based thinking. I mean, I want to make sure that, we are like where the whole tribal community developed was because like together we have strength in numbers. If I support you and I make sure you're strong and healthy, then when our village is getting raided, I know that you're going to help protect me. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yeah. It
Um,
wasn't like a transaction of dollars or anything. It was a transaction of, that kind of valor in humans.
exactly. It was forward thinking. It was more about the survival and thriving of your community, not, okay, I've got 3 cows, and he's got 2 pigs. I don't really like cows, let me, whatever, like that's how
Yeah,
profit-minded
exactly.
people think. Is like, how can I exploit this person's ignorance to make sure that I get
Hmm.
more out of the deal, right?
Hmm.
That's just so
Yeah.
yuck.
It's bogus. No, it's bogus. And we
Yeah.
have like drifted so far as a society into that way. And it's crazy how you said information is kind of, I forget the exact word, but like kind of the repellent of ignorance. And we need more information on this stuff because, we have all the wisdom of the whole world right here in our pockets. And it seems like we just don't use it for the right purposes all the time. It seems like people are more uninformed now than they ever have been when, everything is accessible, but people, scroll on brain rot. They're not educating
Mhm.
themselves on the right decisions. It's crazy. But I haven't heard of anyone talk about impactivism. I mean, you're the first. Did you have any kind of, I don't want to use idols, but like, like me, like I very much like stoicism. So I look up to like Marcus Aurelius. Is there anyone who's kind of been a big picture throughout history who's impacted your this,
Um,
this thought process for you?
that helped me develop into this process. It's hard to pinpoint. I mean, my worldview is a conglomeration of every religion, everything
Mm-hmm.
out there. Like my core tenet in how I operate is that nobody has the whole answer, but each of us has a piece of the answer that nobody else has.
Yeah.
And if I'm turning away everybody just because I think I've got it all figured out, then I'm actually the ignorant one, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm missing out on pieces to continue to fill in what truth looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can get super philosophical on truth and
I love it.
absolute
I love
truth,
it.
like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But um, when it comes to inspiration on that, like really, like this is where I sometimes lose people because the inspiration for this, I truly believe, was divine. I
Yeah.
was working on a platform, like just trying to. I'd worked for this one company that exploited the crap out of me. It was a design marketing agency. Really cool, learned a lot, but the guy he was a psychopath. Like he really didn't care about
Yeah.
who he worked for.
I think we've all had an
Pushed me a
experience
lot.
like that. Working with
Yeah,
someone
probably.
who's. Mm-hmm.
Fairness and equality has always been like a really big piece of my identity. Like it's super important. Every interaction that I have with people, I try to make sure everybody's included. Everything. So I started working on this kind of like IGN type clone. It was a place where gamers could come and share tips and tricks and content, stuff like that. And I wanted to create a revenue sharing model on the platform where it was based on your contributions. So the more you contributed to the platform, the greater your impact on the platform, the more
Yeah.
you would share in the revenue that was being generated. So it was a very kind of gamified type of approach.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time too, I had just watched this documentary on human trafficking. And I want to back up a second. So when I was 13, I was actually kidnapped by a pedophile.
Wow.
Um, but thankfully I had some martial arts training, like just a little bit. So I knew like some defensive maneuvers. I knew how to think. I knew how to
At
be
13 years
aware
old.
of danger. Yeah.
That's
Um,
crazy.
And thankfully, I was able to sequester myself into a bathroom and keep anything bad from happening to me. And I came up with a really crafty lie that scared the crap out of the guy, and he took me back home again.
Mm-hmm.
Point is, I was very, very lucky. Like I could have been
Yeah.
disappeared or something bad.
Mm-hmm.
But it still fucked my head up. It still messed me
Oh,
up. And
yeah.
for years,
How can it not?
I didn't tell anybody about it until I was in my 30s. Um, and then even then, it was just like it sucks that it happened to me. It was like hard to process and work through that kind of stuff once I started actually doing it. But I had no idea how bad human trafficking actually was until I watched this documentary, and I was blown away. At the time, I think it's changed a little bit. At the time, though, human trafficking was the number one crime in the world, higher than weapons, like arms dealings and
That's
drugs, like
insane.
um, absolutely insane. We're talking like multi billion dollar industry, um, and crime, and I just knew like I knew I had to soon like something started burning inside me. I was like, this is my purpose. Like my whole entire life, I had been bouncing around trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. I loved
Yeah.
creating, but like I had no attachment to it. It was like I was making other people millions of dollars all the time because I'm building their things.
Exactly.
But I had like no real like I didn't know what to do myself. I was just following other people's dreams. Finally, I realized what my purpose was. I'm like I got to do something about this, and I just was lit. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I just knew I had to do something. And then
Mm-hmm.
one day I'm coming home from McDonald's with my wife. She's driving the car. I'm drinking a chocolate milkshake. And all of a sudden I get a brain freeze. And when that happened, it was like lightning was started running up and down my electricity running from my head to my toe, my head to my toe. And the whole time I started getting this download. I saw how the software that I was working together was going to come to create this solution called Impactivism and transform and end poverty and human trafficking by, anyways, like basically I
Yeah.
saw 40 years just start to fly by me, and I'm sitting here in shock while my wife's driving, and I'm just like, oh my God, oh my, and I'm looking at her like, oh my God, that's all I could say for like 2 minutes. She thought I was having a stroke. She like pulls over, and I'm just sitting there like shaking, tears rolling down my face, and over and over again. And then finally it ends, and I'm like completely exhausted, like I just got done running a marathon or something. And then I explained it to her, and then it has just been my life has been one crazy, wild roller coaster ever since. I mean, it's always been a crazy roller coaster,
Yeah.
but
I
it
mean,
has
that's just the
been,
journey of life as a human being, And if
yeah,
it's not, I feel like you're doing it wrong. If you're in that comfort zone where it's not that crazy roller coaster, I feel like you're doing something wrong. But no, I
absolutely.
really appreciate you opening up and sharing about that. I think a lot of people have experienced those lows in life, and it's really about how you respond to it, right? So, how would I mean? You,
Absolutely.
you talked about about being kidnapped, about being homeless. I mean, how do you think those low moments in life shaped the Wish that we know today?
They shaped me quite a bit because after that happened, and I didn't realize it, how messed up I was in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a lot of family trouble too. You know, like at the time when that happened, I told my dad some of the details, but I got in trouble. Like all of a sudden, I'm being punished by my dad because I got kidnapped. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like I shut up. I disassociated with my family. I started running away from home. I started breaking the law, stealing cars. From like 15 to 25, I was in and out of the different programs, different juvenile prisons, and then finally like
Gee.
probation restitution centers. So that very much impacted my life. It shaped a whole lot of what I went through, and I consider myself fortunate for that because I got to see so many people's I got to experience like all these different walks of life, like people
Yeah.
that are born in affluent families, but they're still caught up in this crime cycle, or people that are born
Mm-hmm.
with absolutely nothing and they turn to crime because it's the only option that they have. You know, like
Yeah.
understanding crime and poverty and just the drivers of some of the things that plague society. I got to see that from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
I got to hear the stories of people telling me like the bad shit that they would do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like the lessons that they learned. So a lot of what I know I learned from other people's mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, I made
No.
quite a few mistakes myself, but it wasn't
It's
until and the funny thing is like I never believed in God or any of that kind of stuff. In fact, I thought
mm-hmm.
that if God even existed, I wanted nothing to do with him. I was like, this world sucks. Like I was like, you're just a jerk.
It's a low point. Yeah.
you, you know. And then finally, what happened was I got into this high speed car chase. I stole the wrong car. Ended up going from one state into the next state. Ended up getting into a really bad accident that somehow I survived and walked away from. Didn't get
Wow.
caught at all. I had like 20 cops chasing after me, this whole entire, like behind me, like cop cars. And then who knows how many cops were actually on foot once I crashed the car. But it was like one miracle after another. And that was the first night that I truly believed in God.
Yeah.
Um, and I turned my life around. Like I made a deal. Like I was like, guys, like you get me out of this, I will turn everything around. And he got me out of
Yeah.
it, and I turned everything around. Started devoting my life towards helping other people. That's how I learned how to do software development, and got into
Yeah.
programming and search engine manipulation.
Exactly. And you talked about, moving through life without a purpose before. And now you have a very clear, a very strong purpose that you're working for. And you know what maybe not so much the difference in mindset, but what how's the difference in like the way you feel about yourself and the way you feel about life, before that and then after that.
That's an excellent question. Um, I think mindset is very much a big part of that because mindset drove my perspective. And that perspective really was like when I was younger, I had an external locus of control. Are you familiar with that term? A locus of
No, I'm
control?
not.
Locus of control is basically like where's the responsibility of your life, right? External
Mm-hmm.
locus of control is everything that's happening to me is the result of what everybody else is doing. Like I have no control over my life. I'm just a leaf on the wind or the river. An
Kind of a
internal
victim
locus of
mindset.
control, exactly, victim mindset.
Yeah.
An internal locus of control is radically accountable. Like you take ownership of every single thing that happens in your life. Me getting in the car with that pedophile was my fault. What I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
my choice. I was, of course, I was young. I wasn't equipped. I
Yeah.
didn't understand that the drivers and the whole, like the impetus for me even doing that was the guy offered me money. He's like, "Do you want to make some money cleaning a pool?" And my thought was, "Oh, here's my chance to prove to my dad that I can be a money maker too."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. At
Capitalism.
a young age.
Fuck.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. Right there. Like my driving motivation was, can I be an earner? You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then it put me in a bad situation because I'm thinking more about that versus safety and stranger danger whatnot. Um, I'm sorry, I feel like I veered off the question here.
No, we were talking about mindset and kind of that
Mindset,
difference.
thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's like even when I did start changing, like that was really what made probably the biggest difference. I didn't understand it for a while, but I started taking ownership of how my choices were creating the situations that I was in over and
Yeah.
over again, breaking the law. You know what I mean? Like I'd have an emotional outburst and I'd run away from home and violate my probation because I was on house arrest. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like stupid choices because I just was not emotionally mature at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, like, okay, that helped me stop breaking the law, but I still was not equipped. I never had mentors or people that taught me how to think. And, my parents got divorced when I was really young. Barely saw my dad, and it was, he was a Disney dad. He wasn't really the type that taught me anything at all. We'd show
Yeah.
up on the summers, he'd take us to Disneyland, to try to prove that he was a good dad to my mom. But,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, Point was, I had no real mentors. I had no idea what to do. First mentor I ever had in my entire life was this guy that taught me computers, taught me how to build web pages, and that's what kind of like really set me in this direction. Um, but like as far as moral fabric, how to think, how to integrate into society, I was pretty much institutionalized. Like I mean,
Yeah.
for so long, every decision that I had was made for me by the state. This is when you eat. This is when you shower. This is what food you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have. I mean, these are what clothes you're going to wear. All these choices, when they're made for you, it robs you of agency. And people don't even realize that that's the biggest problem with our jail system today. That's a whole other conversation that I'm not going to get into right now.
No,
Um,
I hear you though. But that's what being human is, having that free will and that, like you said, agency over your life. And I'm happy you touched on that because someone told, I can't remember who told me this, but it's like you blame others and you feel good, right? But you blame yourself and you get good, right? So I think
I like
it's
that.
really I really like that you shared that. And Wish, what advice would you have for someone who's at that low point right now, who maybe feels themselves getting caught in the wrong decision and maybe doesn't feel like they have the direction they want? Like, what advice would you have for that person to turn their life around? Because obviously you had the lows and you're where you're at today, which is beautiful. So what advice would you have for that person who's maybe experiencing those lows in life right now?
Absolutely. I would say when it comes down to it, empty your cup. Like, get curious as fuck.
Yeah.
Realize that your way of thinking so far is what's created the situations you're in. You need to
Mm-hmm.
update the models that you're using in your mind, right? And that was a big part of what happened to me. I ended up homeless one time because I trusted the wrong people. I was in my career, right? I ended up homeless though
Yeah.
because I still didn't have how to think right. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I've got to change the way I think. And I dove into self-help stuff. I downloaded every single Tony Robbins audiobook I could find, Brian Tracy, Stephen R. Covey, all the, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I
Yeah.
consumed this content like literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was going while I'm sleeping. I'm creating systems to help just download the stuff into my brain.
Yeah.
Um,
You're
and
rewiring
that really
yourself. You
made the
emptied the cup.
yes, exactly. And I've had to do this several times. Like it's
Yeah.
not and that right there is what it is. Is if you fall in love with the hard part, you fall in love with the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you could fall in love with that part, the sitting down and doing the study part, the part that sucks, right? When
Yeah.
you fall in love with that part, not just the score that you get because you take the test. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
fuck the score. That doesn't mean anything.
No,
You
it
know what I
doesn't.
mean?
Yeah.
It's the learning, right? And because once you get the score, if you're done,
What's after it? What's next?
exactly. If that's what you're
Yeah.
caring about, right? But if learning is what you care about, right? As soon as you get that score, you're on to the next thing. You're continuing to expand your horizons. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say is, with somebody that's in that situation where they're just like, fuck my life, I need to change, get curious, emulate,
Mm-hmm.
find people that have done what you want to do and do what they're doing. That's not hard at all.
Absolutely.
Like Tony Robbins says, success leaves clues. You know, all you have to do is look for the clues and then do what they're doing. And chances are very high you'll be able to walk that same path. Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
most people don't want to do the work.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I think entrepreneurship is like that pursuit of just taking full agency over your life, right? And what you talked about, like like not falling in love with the score, or but falling in love with the work. It's like there's that saying, the man who loves to walk will always walk farther than the man who loves the destination. And I think in
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship, it's very easy to get discouraged. It's very easy to be like, I made X amount of cold calls. I didn't get this result. I didn't get a client. I'm gonna give up. But if you fall in love with the work, those are the people who really succeed. And I think it can be easier said than done. To fall in love with the work like that. But is that you talked about how you mentor other entrepreneurs now and give them the skills, right? Because at the end of the day, you could take all the money away from people, but if you have the skills, you can build it back up. So what can you talk about, like, now that you're in this position where you get to kind of share, like you did the learning, right? And now you're doing the sharing. Can you talk about a little bit about that, about being in that position and what it's like for you?
Sure. Well, I would say that even in mentorship, even when you're teaching, you're still a student. Because every single time I'm teaching a lesson, my brain is processing how can I make this content relatable to this person? And it's forcing me to re-examine that knowledge from different perspectives.
Yeah.
If you're a good orator and you're a good communicator, I think this is what everybody does. Most people are just
Yeah.
like, this is what I know, and let me just regurgitate what I know. And they don't really think about how it's being received, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things, like Simon Sinek is one of my absolute favorites out there. Like he really, when it comes to leadership and how to think about leadership. And like I've resonated him from the beginning because he says that like leadership is service. Like if to be
Hmm.
a leader means you're serving a team. They're not there for you. You're there for them. And if the whole entire time you're not thinking, okay, how can I improve this person's life through the quality of our mission or
Hmm.
the processes of our mission, whatever it takes. Um, then really you're still just in it for yourself, right? If and a
Yeah.
lot of people get into entrepreneurship as just a vehicle for their own wealth, right? And the team members are just there to help bolster their own wealth. They're just
Exactly.
an accessory, more or less. A real leader understands that you're supporting everybody. And the more that getting back to that rising tides, the tribalism type stuff, right? When you think about it like that, if I make sure that you're strong and healthy and happy, and that your wife is strong and healthy and happy, and your kids are strong and healthy and happy, then you're going to show up for work strong, healthy, and happy, and you're going to do a fucking
100%.
kick-ass job. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it. You know what I mean? That mindset's going to not just be like obvious there in the workforce itself, but it's going to go into the quality of your work, how you engage with customers or wherever your touch points are in that business,
Precisely.
whether it's other employees or whatever. Um, so all this stuff is related. We have to really think about no man's an island.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every single choice that we
100%.
make has impact and it ripples out, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so like, even without systems in place, even without having this blockchain based governance model that I'm building, like you can still be an impactivist as long as you care about how your actions and choices are impacting society and those around you. You're an impactivist.
Yeah. 100%. And I love that way of thinking. And you're the first person to ever share this way of thinking with me. And also it's kind of like a way of, like, on a macro level, how societies can move. Do you think that you could that you need to leverage capitalism to spread impactivism, or do you think you can do them separately, if that makes sense?
Yeah, and that's what's cool about impactivism. It's an add-on, right? All it
Mhm.
basically it's capitalism 2.0. It's capitalism
Mhm.
with a conscious. Um, if I think somebody referred to it once as socially conscious capitalism,
Yeah.
which is its own kind of. There's a movement out there called socially conscious capitalism, but it's kind
Mhm.
of the same thing. That's what we're doing is just building socially like social frameworks into the monetary system itself, and it's one of the biggest problems with capitalism, money, traditional money, is that it's yes, you can grow it in the marketplace itself by taking either wealth out of the ground, like and then building things with it. That's how wealth is primarily generated in capitalism.
Yeah.
Um, but with impactivism, and then you exchange it, right? So there's a finite level, like there's only so many resources on the planet, right? So we're going to have a cap if that's what we're looking, if that's how we define how wealth is
Exactly.
generated, right? And let's assume that we're never going to mine asteroids, which we probably will one day, right?
We'll
Um,
get there.
but let's just say we're capped, right? So that right there
Yeah.
shows you there's a hard limit on what capitalism can do, and the way that things are designed right now is the richer are just going to keep getting richer and the poor are just going to keep getting poorer, right? So what happens is basically like if I do the work to generate the wealth and pull it out of the ground, you've got the system, by you I mean like capitalists,
Yeah.
got the systems in place to extract that wealth that I extracted from me
Mm-hmm.
into your bank, right? That's how our systems
Exactly.
work. Well, impactivism is different. You can't take my impact from me. If
Mm-hmm.
I build something and 20,000 people benefit from it, you can't undo that. It's been done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So impact is not something you trade. It's just something you generate. So think of it as more like XP, right?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what we're doing, right? We're gamifying the world through
Mm-hmm.
impactivism. Everything is just experience points. And as you
Mm-hmm.
continue to build up your experience points, you qualify for bigger and better benefits of society, like cruises or, going
Yeah.
a trip to the moon,
Whatever it is in your
whatever.
mind. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Like, because obviously there's still a drain, there's still a resource drain on the actions that you do. If you build a business, people are, and you hire people in that business, people are spending their time to contribute towards whatever solution you're trying to solve or problem you're trying to solve, right? So
Yeah.
there's still resources that have to be exchanged. Like that, you can't get away from that. But an impact-based economy, the way that we exchange and measure that exchange, it's not done for profit. Resources are just for example, if it costs me $5 to fill up one bottle of water, right? You buy it for $1,
Mm-hmm.
or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of money that exchanges hands in the process of just getting that to you,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And maybe this analogy is maybe not the best analogy here. Um, but
I'm
you can see how
following.
like all those different stages are going to impact the amount of wealth that can be generated along the way. Um, Either one, if I'm selling this at a loss, it means I'm taking I'm being subsidized somehow through some other like government agency or something like that. Usually, that allows me to sell this at a loss, that's exactly how we do with the milk industry right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and where's that going with this? um, Point is, in a profit-based economy, once that's done, like I drank that and consume it, it's done. All of the waste and resources that went into getting that into my hand are not factored into it at all. Like there could have been shady processes taken, really bad
People
materials that were used.
exploited. Yeah.
People exploited. Yeah, people not even paid at all, right?
Yeah,
To move
exactly.
things like slave labor,
Yeah.
like we're doing with our prison workforces now. Basically
Mm-hmm.
paying people 12 cents a day to manufacture products that are sold for $20. You know what I mean? For
There's
corporations
an
like Walmart or
incentive. Yeah,
whatever.
there's an incentive behind it.
Um, but so there's this thing called true cost. The true cost is the actual cost of resources that it took to get that into my hand, and then the actual like what was consumed when I finally consumed it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the whole true cost of it. That's a negative impact. So impactivism doesn't just measure your positive impact; it also measures your negative impact, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand your carbon footprint too in order for you to make smarter choices. You know,
Exactly.
if you another good example that I like to use of this, and this is what's really cool about this model, is that when you have this awareness, you automatically start making smart choices, right?
Yeah.
They show people that have meter energy meters in their home, so they can see how much electricity they're consuming throughout the daytime, right? When you have that metric available to you, you instinctively consume less because as you leave your rooms, you turn off your lights. You gamify in your mind, how can I lower this? Right? What can I do? What little steps can I take to bring this meter down? Because that's cost, right? You understand,
Awareness
oh
is the
shit,
first
that's
step
money.
in everything. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
100%.
Man,
So
that's
that's a big piece
crazy.
of that.
That's crazy. I really like this way of thinking. How do you think entrepreneurship and maybe not when I'm talking about entrepreneurship, I'm not talking about, the trillion dollar, billion dollar companies, the small entrepreneurs, the solopreneurs, the teams of, 5 to 100. How do you think entrepreneurship is affected by impactivism or maybe the reverse?
I think it's enhanced. So
Yeah.
A lot of impact of capitalism now is driven by competition, and competition is good in the fact that it forces us to say, "Oh, that person did it a really cool way. I think I could do it better, or
Yeah.
I think I could,
It's a level up.
I can run farther." Huh?
Yeah. It's like a level up if we're gamifying things, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And there's this book that I'm reading now called The Art of Scaling or something like that. I forget what it's called. Um, but he's talking about how for the longest time, like coaches in the NBA and stuff like that, when they were trying to create these like well-rounded teams.
Yeah.
Because their thought was like, if we've got a superstar, then this guy that's mediocre will rise, right? And they
Yeah.
tried to like that was kind of how they did it. But then like I think it wasn't not too long ago. They were starting like screw this, like we're just stacking superstars.
Yeah.
And they found that what happened is that the superstars, when they were with a team of mediocre players, they would perform their normal. Like they wouldn't do
Yeah.
any better, and sometimes they would actually do worse. But if a superstar was with a team of other superstars, they keep climbing. They keep getting better
Mm-hmm.
because of that competitive nature that they both have, right? Because that's the
Yeah.
difference between a mediocre person and a superstar. A superstar is like, I can do better. I can do better. And they're
Mm-hmm.
constantly practicing to sharpen that knife, right? A
Yeah.
mediocre person is like, oh, this is good enough.
Yeah.
And they quit,
Exactly. Exactly. No,
you
it's
know?
like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, you know?
Yeah.
That's what my mom always
So,
used to tell me.
yeah, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that saying. So getting to your question, when it comes to entrepreneurship really, good entrepreneurship, let me define it this way, is the act of solving a problem. That's really all it is. It's finding a way to create a solution that can solve a problem and then scale that solution, right?
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, you want to be rewarded for your hard work, so it's nice to get paid for building a business around that, Obviously,
Yeah.
the people that are helping you scale that solution want to be rewarded for their hard work too. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
profit motives are part of this system when it comes to capitalism. And impactivism is a little different, right? Impactivism, you're just thinking about, okay, how is our solution actually going to impact society? The
Mm-hmm.
teams that come together have to be very much like-minded, not just I'm getting a job, I'm here because you're the only person that would hire me. You know what I mean? Which is
Yeah.
kind of like how people show up for work today. Now it's no longer really corporations. You have organizations and teams solving problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have a solution. So, like Renaissance Analytics, right? We have a team. Our people, the whole goal of Renaissance Analytics is to create the software and solutions and programs necessary for the Kunin Consortium to be able to grow Impactivism. Kunin
Good.
Consortium is a completely different entity. We don't have to get into that one, but it's
Yeah.
basically like the nonprofit thing that's
Yeah.
driving
The aspect
body
of
and
it.
governing
Yeah.
body. Yeah.
No, that's
Um,
awesome.
like our motives are not profit driven. We do have to think about a profit model in order to create our resources so we can continue to scale. But when I sit there and I talk to people, I'm not like, hey, come along, I'm going to make you rich. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, you want to help like establish a legacy that will last forever? Because that's really what
Yeah.
we're doing. I don't want to say if we're successful, when we are successful at this, of making
Mm-hmm.
this a mainstream solution, um, it becomes embedded. Like it's residual. So like even this conversation here, like you're already implanted into the analogs of impactivism, and like
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be generating impact based off of this podcast
Yeah. I'm gonna
forever.
share it to the world.
Yeah, you know,
No,
and then
awesome.
when we actually have these kind of systems in place, that monetary gain, you'll be able to sit there and just watch how one person watched this podcast. Okay, you affected one person, but that person goes on and builds something now because they got inspired. You're still
Mm-hmm.
part of that chain, right? And
Exactly.
this is how,
Impactivism.
and that's what makes it so beautiful. Why teams and big stuff can come together because
Mm-hmm.
it's not just about okay, how can I get mine? It's about how can we contribute and share in this. Because if we're part of a team
Exactly.
and we're creating a solution and that's out there impacting and affecting millions of people's lives, whether you're the janitor of that team or you're the senior developer of that team, you're sharing in the impact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
100%.
think there's more motivation,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, the benefits are just insane. There are some negatives, like some challenges, basically, I should say, that we have to overcome.
Yeah.
Um, and they're,
Well, it's a new way of thinking. It's an add-on, you know?
mhm,
Yeah, and
exactly.
it's yeah, and I always, I see the entrepreneurs who are just looking for the quick gains and stuff, and that's all it is just a quick gain, a cheap thrill. But then, people realize that stuff, the way it impacts other people, the time will show it, and like the people who really are out there to solve a problem, to make the world a better place, those are the ones who you see level up and level up and level up consistently. So that's awesome that you shared that, and maybe to take a different direction, but how do you think AI is affecting impactivism and entrepreneurship as a whole? Because I know you're
Um,
pretty into AI.
yeah. I think it's what's really cool about AI, at least in my opinion, is that it's the way that we use it. Anyways, we keep human in the loop, right? The goal is not to remove humans from the processes that we're engaging in society. It's
Hmm.
to make sure that humans can stay in flow, right? And to reduce the amount of just mundane work that slows down the process.
Yeah.
If I can continue to just write code because all I have to do is now have a conversation with my IDE, and then
Hmm.
all of the testing, deployment, and like I can automate almost all of the crappy part of doing my job.
Hmm.
Um, that's awesome. Then I'm just stuck. Then I can just focus on the part I
Yeah.
love, which is the iteration,
Creating.
right?
Yeah.
The improvement.
Exactly.
And that's the same thing, whether we're, so if you're the CEO of an organization or the president of the United States, right, having an assistant there to make sure that you can stay in flow to where, like, when you use one of our flagship product right now, Spark,
Yeah.
it's designed to help remove all the barriers of entry to entrepreneurship, right? So if you've got an idea, it'll help you go from concept to cash flow by basically helping you do due diligence, like understanding the problem you're working on, crafting your user profiles, how big is your market that's actually affected, creating your pitch decks. It has all these different really cool tools to help you do this.
Yeah.
And but like if you build a bad idea, oh, I'm sorry, I just lost track of what I was saying.
Oh no, you were talking about Spark and how it was and we were talking about the flow and all of that.
Yeah,
You got an email.
sorry.
An email came in.
Yeah, the one of my clients. Are you still there?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay,
can.
good. Okay, cool. Yeah, so AI. When it comes to the assistants, like that's the whole point. Like we don't want it to like I don't think it would be a good idea to have an AI president. But to have
No.
an I mean have a president that is enhanced by an AI and an AI that's so intelligent and like it knows congressional law or
Hmm.
constitutional law. So it can make sure that every decision I'm making as I'm making them, or even referring like, okay, this is what I think, this is what's coming across my table. What does the Constitution say? This is what I want to do. Am I able to do? If I can have those kind of conversations with something that can give me irrefutable, factual information, then it's great. I mean, this is where people be like, oh, wait a second, AI is full of problems, right? Yes and no, right? Yes, AI does
Everything. It's like
hallucinate.
the internet, kind of.
Yeah, but humans hallucinate too. Like I've sat down, like I've worked with experts that are out of like have masters in college, in their particular like computer science or something like that, and these guys are leaving freaking open FTP anonymous servers on our servers where hackers are able to create 0 day drops on our server. Like making
Yeah.
stupid mistakes
Yeah.
that should not have been made. You know what I mean? So just because you've got intelligence and just because you've got like credentials, that doesn't mean you actually have the knowledge to be able to do these things.
Exactly.
Or doesn't mean that you're not going to be in an emotional state where you're going to drop the ball because you're human. Like we work off of chemicals, and if the right chemical mix isn't there, our thoughts are going to be everywhere else. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely. No, I
neurology
agree
is,
100%.
you
It's a
know,
crazy topic.
I want to jump back real quick into a question you asked earlier. One of the advice, like if you're one of those people when it comes to getting curious,
Yeah.
learn about your brain, Like that's probably the most important thing that you could do is learn how your brain actually works, like how the
The
dopamine cycle of
awareness.
your brain works. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like once you learn that cycle, then everything is like, then you can start hacking your whole entire life.
exactly. In the best way possible. That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I know we went over a little bit over the time we had scheduled, or maybe a lot of it.
No problem.
But Wish, if I want to get in touch with you, either for Renaissance Analytics or Mini Ren, what would be the best way for someone to get in touch with you?
The miniren.app website is probably the best one if you want to just get a hold of me. If you want to get a hold of some of our, like impact.do is the Spark platform right now.
Yeah.
It's beta. It's not a finished product, so just keep that in mind. If you go on there and start playing
Yeah.
with it, you'll probably find bugs. Um, but yeah,
It's a work in
you can.
progress. Yeah.
Instagram is probably my main social place.
Nice.
Is how to get a hold of me there, and you can kind of see like some of the areas of my life too, like the martial arts stuff and whatever.
Yeah. The dimensions of being a human being. Yeah. We are multifaceted. That's amazing. Wish, I want to thank
Absolutely.
you so much for hopping on the podcast with us. And yeah,
Thank
I
you.
really, really enjoyed getting to know you and taking this different perspective, from normally just talking numbers and figures to kind of just talking overall motivations and just society as a whole.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me. It's been real good.